all the videos.
Welcome to TaNaCh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live from Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of Rabbi Tovia Singer's Let's Get Biblical Q&A, coming to you from the Holy Land. Rabbi, the man, the myth, the legend, Tovia Singer, welcome back from this long, awesome trip and seeing you in San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah, that was exciting.
That was a really, really fantastic time. It sure was.
Yeah, we had a wonderful time. And it was wonderful spending the time with you.
Thank you.
And I think Greg did a great job.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was enjoyable spending that time with Jonathan. And so it was a very exciting thing for the audience. And I'm very grateful for that. And I'm back with no...
Okay, so this Jews for Jesus, there's a guy sent me this video on Facebook Messenger. I can't remember who it was. I apologize for not giving you a shout out. But the clips you selected on here are just like butter and honey. It's great. Good stuff.
Well, yeah.
Tell us more about it.
Yeah.
What's the background of Jews for Jesus to begin with? And because people tell me this, they say all the time, they said, you can't tell me that there's no smart Jews who convert to Christianity. Because that's what I always say, is the people who usually convert to Christianity from Judaism are usually people who were raised secular. That's my stance. And they'll throw up Jews for Jesus or some of these other popular names. Oh, this person was born Jewish and they totally believe in Jesus. They were raised religious and all this other stuff. What is the background of Jews for Jesus?
Well, Jeff Morgan, who's he's like the lead missionary of Jews for Jesus here in Israel. He grew up in a completely secular background. So he really grew up completely irreligious. So yeah, this is not an IQ test kind of thing. What happens is that in the Bible, you have Jewish people who worship the gods of the other nations, and the Torah warns us not to, but it's not about intelligence. There are so many intelligent people who don't believe in anything, tragically don't believe in the God of Israel. And I'm sure there were many Jews who worship the golden calf who would have done very well on a Rorschach test. So it's not about intelligence, it's about knowing about the God of Israel. It is true that if you have studied Scripture in your life, you've studied the Hebrew Bible, you're knowledgeable about your Jewish faith, so it's very, very unlikely that you're going to convert to Christianity. Doesn't mean it's impossible. It's just extremely unlikely. Conversely, and something that you and I have seen over the years, that is that a very significant number of the Christians that become B'nai Noach, convert to Judaism, a very significant number of them are not just former Christians, but they're really, many of them are former pastors. You're a pastor's kid. They're people who are very knowledgeable. So the kind of Christians that are most likely to convert to Judaism are the most knowledgeable Christians, most conservative Christians. They're the former Southern Baptist Assemblies of God and so on. They're the ones who are most likely. Those who are the Christians that are least likely to convert to Judaism are the Hillary Clinton Christian. I don't know anything personal about her. I think she's a Methodist. But I mean, the liberal Christians, they're not. So it's the more you know about Christianity, the more likely it is that you will convert to Judaism if you have some exposure to it. So with Christianity, the more you know about Judaism, it's very unlikely. I'm not saying it's never happened. You know, there are the craziest stories in history, but there are, the founder of the Reconstructionist movement, which is an American-based denomination, they don't believe in a personal God at all. And the founder of it, a guy named Mordechai Kaplan, who was a rabbi, he was a scholar, and he just denied it all. You have people like that in the Bible. You have Achaz, whose father was a very religious Orthodox Jew in this, and the kid just went off and worshipped other gods. Of course, we pray for for Jeff Morgan that he would come back to the Jewish faith and so on, and I hope he will. There have been many staff members of Jews for Jesus who repented over the years, and looking forward to him
Amen.
as well. But right now, he's very actively involved in converting Jews to Christianity. Jews for Jesus is a Baptist mission to the Jews.
Interesting. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. That's great. All right, I'll get this first clip underway here.
Yeah, so what you have is Jeff Morgan. He's being interviewed by Sean McDowell, whose father is fairly famous. His father is the author of the book Evidence and Demands of Verdict. I mean, his father is Josh McDowell.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, from Campus Crusaders. And he is going through why Jews should convert to Christianity and how to respond to Jewish objections to the Christian religion. And he's going to give us some reasons why Jews should embrace the Christian religion.
Young woman. In the interpretations argue that Isaiah 14 refers simply to a young woman in the time of King Ahaz or Ahaz, and that the birth happened then and not a virgin birth, or the Messiah. So what the claim is that Alma, which is the word that's used and translated as virgin, actually means young woman, right? And it actually does. So I'm not going to deny that to make a point. If Isaiah meant virgin, this is what they're saying. If Isaiah meant virgin, he would have used the word betula, which actually means specifically virgin. It doesn't mean young woman, it means virgin. And they'll also say the prophecy was fulfilled in Ahaz's day or Ahaz's day, so it doesn't apply to Jesus. And so there are some things that this objection overlooks. I'll try to get through them quickly because this is another hour-long topic.
At least.
The objection overlooks linguistic evidence, Jewish tradition, especially from the Septuagint, which we'll get into in a second, and the pattern of dual fulfillment common in Hebrew prophecy. So if we read the verse, Isaiah 7:14 says, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the Alma shall conceive and bear a son and shall call his name Emmanuel," which means God is with us. That's Isaiah 7:14. So there's this argument between Alma, which means young woman of marriable age, and Betula, which means virgin. So what's the difference here? So Alma is a young unmarried woman presumed to be a virgin in Hebrew culture. Okay, this is presumed because a young unmarried woman would have been presumed to have not had relations yet. And this was also within Jewish law. And if a unmarried woman was found to have been with a man, there would have been legal consequences. And so this word Alma is used 7 times in the TaNaCh and never of a non-virgin.
Oh, wow. Go ahead.
So it's hard to wrap your head around this. Obviously, we're talking about Matthew's misquote in chapter 1, verse 23 of Isaiah 7:14. Matthew tells us that the prophet Isaiah foretold that the Messiah was to be born of a virgin. It's the infancy narrative found in the first gospel. What you're listening to by Mr. Morgan is complete nonsense. The word Alma does not mean a young virgin of marriageable age or a young woman of marriageable age who is presumed to be a virgin. It doesn't mean any of those things. Alma simply means a young woman. It conveys 2 things. It conveys gender and youth. As it turns out, young women typically have babies, not old women. So it has nothing to do with any of that. This is a kind of thing like you're watching a card trick, done on the sidewalk. This is not even a Vegas show. This is just very silly. Virgin, conversely, although it may seem related, it's not related at all. The word virgin just conveys someone's sexual history or the lack thereof. So the text in Isaiah 7:14 is, "Behold, the young woman is with child." this event occurs 2,700 years ago. It's a contemporaneous crisis where Achaz was surrounded by two northern kingdoms, the northern kingdom of Israel, and another kingdom to the north of that, and that is Syria or Aram, two kings, Pekach ben Remaliah and Ritzin, and they want to destroy the southern kingdom of Judah, and Isaiah gives him a sign so he will know that these two kings that are trying to destroy you will not succeed. And I plead with people, just read it in context and you'll immediately get it. This nonsense that the word alma only means a virgin or unmarried, this is all nonsense. Just like in the English language, young woman, it's two words, but just imagine young woman as one phrase, does not tell you whether she's a virgin, she's not a virgin, doesn't tell you any of those things. The word appears more than 7 times. I mean, King David says, Hiksarta Yimei Alumov in Psalm 89, verse 46 or 45 in the Christian Bible. You have cut off the days of my youth. It didn't say you have cut off the days of my virginity. This is really very silly stuff. So never allow yourself to be persuaded that somehow Alma implies virginity. If Isaiah wanted to tell us that a virgin had conceived supernaturally, he would have used the word betula, which is the only way, both in biblical Hebrew and modern Hebrew, to convey sexual purity, that someone has never been with a man. Let's continue.
Okay. And he mentioned in there also dual fulfillment.
Yeah, he mentioned their dual fulfillment. So I should tell I'm glad you raised that. So dual fulfillment. So there are Christians who try to work their way around that by saying, look, there's some truth to this, but maybe this is fulfilled twice. Now, the reason why Christians are in trouble is they don't read Isaiah 7:14 in context. So if you read Isaiah 7, verse 1 through 13, and read the verses that follow 14, 15, 16, and 17, you'll see immediately that it was an event that was happening then. It was an immediate crisis. It's called the Afro-Syria War. So there are Christians who say this is a dual fulfillment. It was fulfilled once 2,700 years ago during the Assyrian Empire, and it was fulfilled a second time during the time of Jesus. This argument is silly, and it collapses completely, because if the word Alma means a virgin, as Jeff is insisting, then are you really saying there are two virgins in history? There's one virgin during the time of Isaiah. You see how the whole thing collapses. Was there a virgin during the time of Isaiah and Achaz and a second virgin? Moreover, it says there, if you go to verse 15, 16, that's really the sign, butter and honey will the child eat when he knows to reject bad and choose good. For before he knows to reject evil and choose good, these two kings that you abhor will be destroyed. Well, during the time of Jesus, if this was fulfilled twice, what are the two kings? And it tells us specifically as referring to Damascus and the northern kingdom. So there was no northern kingdom during the time of Jesus, and the Assyrian Empire wasn't an empire, it was the Roman Empire. This is so ridiculous. So if you see, this is how you get into trouble. Now, I don't know if Jeff has thought this through, not thought. I don't know what the heck, why he's saying this kind of stuff. I'll tell you why, because missionaries routinely say this, and you have to know how to respond to this. If there's a dual fulfillment, that means there are two virgins. And that means there are two times when there's a kingdom of Syria and a northern kingdom of Israel and a crisis that was solved. This is really a transparently ridiculous argument.
That is pretty wild. All right, let me get this next clip ready. Here we go.
So now you have the word betula, right, which is where the argument comes in, which is often translated as virgin. And in modern day Hebrew, that word always means a virgin, right? But in the TaNaCh, this word betula still requires qualifiers. So we have, it's not always clear either. So we have in Genesis 24:16, it says here, a betula whom no man had known, right? So if betula already meant virgin, why add the clarification?
Great question.
Okay. And you could say, okay, that's a weak argument, but There's more. In Joel 1, verse 8, it says, lament like a Betula for the husband of her youth. So this Betula had a husband, possibly is now a widow. So Betula can be ambiguous, and Alma is consistently associated with virginity. Okay?
Okay.
All right, so this is more nonsense. But let's talk about Rebecca. Rebecca, we are told she is a Betula. She was a virgin. She had not known a man. Now, what he's doing is he's engaging in sort of a scorched earth approach here. That means we'll just blow up the whole thing. Like somehow the word virgin doesn't necessarily mean a virgin in biblical Hebrew, which is completely not true. And I beg anyone, please look up the word Betula in any, ask anyone, it doesn't matter. Betula only means virgin. It's the only way in both biblical Hebrew and modern Hebrew to convey virginity. That means had not had sex with anyone. So what they're doing is saying, well, all these words really are more elastic than the Jews claim. So he used two very shockingly weak arguments to convey that. One is Rebecca, where it says, and she was a virgin, had not known a man. That means, because why do you need the modified she didn't know a man if it already says it's a virgin? But this is very silly, because this is the way TaNaCh speaks. TaNaCh will say he was righteous, he didn't commit a sin. Example, Sarah, Genesis chapter 11, verse 30. It tells us that Sarah was sterile, she was an akara, and she had no children. Does that mean being barren means she had children? Doesn't undermine the word akara. You have this constantly throughout TaNaCh, where TaNaCh will say barren and didn't have any children. We have the same thing in the beginning of the book. It doesn't undermine what the word is, just simple. Now, I will say a sweet little thing. Our sages do comment on this, that it says Besula and that she was a virgin and didn't know a man. So our sages expound on this. I think is nice. I mean, I could leave it alone, but there is a very sweet thing. So our sages tell us that when the Torah is that to Rebecca, so there are some girls who may have engaged in some sort of sexual activity, but just didn't have sexual intercourse. So what is being conveyed in the Torah when the Torah says that she was a virgin, didn't know a man? It's an added praise of her that she never had any contact with any man, with any kind of intimacy at all. And as an example, you can go to the book of Esther, when Achashverosh's wife was assassinated or executed, when Vashti, so they brought in all sorts of virgins in front of Achashverosh the king, so they're called a basula, but doesn't add in that they didn't know a man, as an example, because it could have been some of them, whatever, but they didn't actually have intercourse. That I'm bringing that as an aside. In truth, that's a homily. The key point is the Torah very often will say a person is righteous and he did not turn away from the will of God, that Noach was righteous and he went after God. Does not mean that the word righteous doesn't mean righteous. These are not modifiers. It's a beautiful, clean way that Scripture speaks. What was the other part?
Something about the husband of
the
youth.
Yeah. Then the Joel thing. The Joel thing is insane, really insane. So in Joel chapter 1, verse 8, so Joel, the first half of Joel begins with a tremendous consternation. The first part of Joel begins with terrible things that are going to happen to you. The end of Joel, of course, is messianic and all the wonderful things. The Joel begins by describing how you planted a field but your enemies ultimately reap the harvest. You plant grapes. Now, it says there, lament like a virgin who's wearing sackcloth for the bridegroom of her youth. What is going on there? She's a virgin, but she's mourning over the husband of her youth. What is going on there? So this is very interesting. It's fascinating. Joel is describing in all of these examples of someone who had something and then bang. In the ancient world, when people would get married, so it would actually happen in two stages. One is that the man would give a woman a ring, and she would become betrothed. This is actually important to understand what the Christian Bible is saying also. Not that you have to study the New Testament, but what is with Joseph? He wanted to divorce her. He never slept with her. So actually you could see it in the infancy narratives as well. But let's stay focused. In the ancient world, when a man married a woman, he first gave her something of value, usually a ring, let's say a ring made of gold. It could be anything of value. She was then called betrothed, in arusa. Okay. Now, what happened is they didn't live together as man and wife. They didn't consummate their relationship. Rather, he would go and build a house, and she would go and live with her parents. Let's say a year later, she would then leave her parents' house and join him. And the second part of the marriage is the nisuin. We don't do this anymore. Today, both the eris and the nisuin, these two sections of the wedding, all take place at the same time. It actually all takes place at a Jewish way. We don't divide it up. Now, what is going on in Joel? He says, imagine the tragedy of this girl, she's a virgin, which means she's married, means she's an arusa, which means she was betrothed, but she never enjoyed the pleasure of marital intimacy, and he's dead, he dies. Could you imagine the pain that a girl feels, that here she loves this man and longed for the day to be intimate with him, and he's killed? That's the whole point. The whole point of Joel, the opening of the book of Joel, is that you planted grapes, but you never ate them. You planted a field filled with grain, and your enemies came and it was all wiped away and destroyed. You married a man, so you're betrothed, but you never slept with him, and he's killed. So it's unbelievable. So when it says kivsula in Joel 1:8, the whole point of it is that she's a virgin but married. It doesn't mean that the word basula or virgin doesn't necessarily mean someone who never slept with anyone. The whole point is that she's a virgin. The fact that she's a virgin is what makes it so tragic. You could blow your mind away when you look at these arguments of the largest religion on the planet. This is not some psycho cult on the extreme. This is 1/3 of the world believes in this kind of stuff. And they have to use such ridiculous argument. I don't mean anything personal against this fellow, but these missionaries use the most such torturous arguments to advance their claims. It blows your mind away. Let's go to the next clip.
Let's get this third clip going. This will be our third and final clip. Phone lines are open also, guys. 855-952-4253. Give that a shout. Here we go.
Most compelling arguments against the religious Jewish argument against the virgin birth is from the Septuagint, which supports the virgin reading. So Jewish scholars in the 2nd and 3rd century BC, they translated Alma in Isaiah 7:14 as, in Greek, and you'll probably know this too, Parthenos, right? Which is Greek for virgin, okay? So this was translated by Jewish scholars. They claim it was around 70, which is where we get the name Septuagint, 200 to 300 years before Jesus, right? So this word Alma was translated into Greek as Parthenos, which means virgin. And so these translators were Jewish, not Christians. Their interpretation predates Jesus, and they understood that this prophecy is to refer to a miraculous virgin birth, or the sign that God would give. And so this means that the virgin interpretation was already Jewish. So,
oh boy.
Yeah. So here we have a very interesting argument, and I say this to you when speaking to a missionary. This is the argument that's going to come up most frequently. After all, missionaries would argue that the oldest translation of the Bible, I'm selecting my words very carefully here, the oldest translation of the Hebrew Bible is a Septuagint, when in about 256 BCE, some 70 learned Jews translated the Hebrew Bible. This is how their point will go. This is how the setup. When they came to the word Alma, they translated in Greek as Parthenos, which in Greek means a virgin. That's how the argument goes. This is, again, sleight of hand. It's sleight of hand because the premise is completely flawed. As it turns out, the original Septuagint, which scholars refer to as the Proto-Septuagint, did not include the book of Isaiah. This whole thing is just it's just smoke and mirrors. The original Septuagint was only of the 5 books of Moses, the Chumash, the Pentateuch. There's no disagreement about this point. We have many witnesses on this. We have the letter of Aristide, the Talmud, Josephus. It's all over the place. It was only the law of Moses. Isaiah is part of the prophets, and therefore Isaiah wasn't translated by them. So what you just heard Jeff say to Sean is it's fatuous. It's not correct. Subsequently, there were many Greek translations that were created. The most famous was the one that was produced by Origen, a 3rd century church father, and eventually the word Parthenos crept in there. It's not from the original 70 or 72 rabbis or learned men that translated. So you need to get this through your head. The original Septuagint was only the 5 books of Moses. See, so when he is saying that, the learned rabbis, they weren't Christians and they rendered it as Parthenos, this is it's a torturous argument. It is without merit. We don't have a single Greek translation of the book of Isaiah that predates Christianity. It doesn't exist anywhere. So it's not like when the Septuagint that you order on Amazon, we have that going back to before the Christian period. That's completely silly. It happens to be that the word Parthenos doesn't necessarily mean a virgin. Take an example of the first 4 passages of Genesis chapter 34, where Dinah, after she was raped in the Septuagint, is called a Parthenos. Now, I just want to close this up here with this point. The claim of the churches, the claim that Jews for Jesus and Chosen People Ministries make is that there are hundreds of passages in the Hebrew Bible that demonstrate that Jesus is the Messiah. That's their claim. And then when you push back and say, well, give me these verses, show me these incredible proofs, what we find is just scandals, just these convoluted explanations from Septuagints, from mistranslations, passages invented and taken out of context. And we're going, well, what's going on here? This is not what I signed up for, right? So I always say to folks, when you're facing a missionary, don't be afraid, because the truth is on your side. Always look it up in the original Hebrew. Don't let them drag you to the Septuagints. The Septuagint, even of the 5 books of Moses, is lost. We don't have it any longer. It was produced for the Alexandrian Library, which was burned to the ground many times. So no one has the Proto-Septuagint. We have a few quotes from it in the Talmud, and that's it. And Isaiah was not part of the original Septuagint, so do not let missionaries from Jews for Jesus try to persuade you otherwise. Go back to the original. Thank you.
All right, very good. That was fun. All right. Okay, well, Rabbi, thank you for your time. It's been a good show. Good to have you back in the studio. It was even better, though, seeing you in San Antonio. So I'm guessing we have a year. if we follow history, usually around this time of year, we see you in the States somewhere. So now, viewers out there, is not a bad time to start fishing around for places Rabbi could debate your local cities and towns. And be sure to follow Rabbi Singer, Tovia Singer. If you want to send him an email, that's toviasinger1@aol.com for any other questions you feel like you didn't get in on the show. And also, his 2-volume book set are available on his website. I think they're still on Amazon, but you can order them straight through his website also, outreachjudaism.org. And
or com.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you've got com now. That's true, too. And so the CDs you see on your screen, the CDs are not available. And I know that breaks a lot of people's hearts. They like having the discs in their hands, but all of the audio files are. They have correlating chapter titles. So you guys, if you've seen the books already, when you go to the free audio tab on the website, you'll see the same titles. There's not an audio book. It's extra information. The audio came first, books came later. And we're waiting for volume 3 to come out one of these days, hopefully. Thank you, Rabbi. Appreciate it. Guys,
Thank you. Always enjoyed it.
Subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on notifications so you don't miss a beat, and we'll see you, Hashem willing, same time, same place next week. Peace, everybody. Shalom. If you enjoyed this channel and the content, and it has changed your life, or perhaps the life of a loved one or a close friend, would you please consider supporting this work? You can click this link and it'll take you directly to my website with the donate button. Or there's a Patreon link and a mailing address for snail mail if you would prefer. If you do donate, please do me a favor and leave me a phone number where I can contact you and thank you properly. I hope you all have a wonderful 2025. Shalom.